The Sao Paulo Grand Prix just took place, and let's go through the performance of each of the driver, starting with the last finisher of the race and ending with the race winner, beginning with Nico Hulkenberg. He was looking absolutely uncomfortable in the car, got knocked out in Q1, P18 starting grid position, and he was uncomfortable in throughout the car. He lacked pace. He had some interesting wheel-to-wheel battle against Oliver Behrman, his teammate for the weekend, but didn't really get to grips with his car in these type of dynamic conditions. At one point in the race outside of turn 1, he got stuck outside of the track, and 4 or 5 marshals had to come and push his car so that he could get going again. Obviously you cannot do that, and that was the reason why he was black flagged during the red flag when Franco Colapinto crashed out, and that was the time in which Nico Hulkenberg got the news that he has been disqualified out of the race, got a black flag because of that assistance from the marshals. It is what it is. He was on a good point scoring run for the Americas triple header. He scored points in sprint and the main race in Austin, continued the same momentum to Mexico. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end. It was sad for Nico Hulkenberg, and they dropped a little bit back in the constructor standings as well because of this abysmal performance, although he had nothing to do with it. We move on. Lance Stroll. So he did not even start the race. As the formation lap was taking place, he locked up his rears, got off the track, managed to keep the engine running, and then drove again into wet gravel. Not gravel, but like sand. And he beached the car, and obviously you can't really get out of that. One thing I couldn't understand about Lance Stroll is, why did you drive directly into the wet soil? Like, why would you go there? You had the engine running, you could just turn around and rejoin the track. But that's just Lance Stroll, I guess. He had a good starting position, probably could have scored some points if he just thugged it out, considering how so many people got off the track. But then again, I'm probably asking too much out of Lance Stroll. We move on. Up next, Alexander Albon. Now, this is the problem with Alexander Albon and DNFing. He did not even start the race because he destroyed his car in the qualifying, and this is a worrying trend I am seeing with this driver, because in Mexico he had that crash in FP1 with Oliver Behrman. He tried to blame it on him, and then in the main race he crashed out before even getting into turn 1 in Mexico. Come to Brazil, looked really quick, and even though he crashed out in Q3, he still qualified P7. So obviously the damage was too big. The mechanics could not repair the car because it was only a few hours away. So he couldn't even start the race. Really unfortunate from him. Extremely unfortunate for the Williams team as a whole, because they incurred a lot of financial damage because of Alexander Albon over the last couple of weekends. It seems to me that in Williams, there has to be some driver who consistently crashes and just acts as a financial black hole. It was Nicholas Latifi for a certain period of time, and then it was Logan Sargent, and now it is Alexander Albon. I know that Franco Colapinto also crashed out a couple of times, and his car was fixed for the race, which he again repaid by destroying it even further in the main race. We'll talk about him in a second. But Alex Albon is no good. From Italy, when Franco Colapinto joined the team, till today, Franco Colapinto's only DNF is Brazil. You cannot say the same thing about Alexander Albon. Really worrying trend. Need to watch his back. This type of money is very significant for smaller teams like Williams. We move on though. Up next, Franco Colapinto. Speak of the devil, right? The team fixed his car primarily because Brazilians wanted to see him. Probably, I am not 100% sure, but it seems like it. He has a lot of following in Brazil, kind of like his home race. And it was just an unfortunate week overall for Franco Colapinto. He lost his grandfather. He couldn't even go there to be with his father, like with his dad, to console him and help him. Not really confident in the car for the entire weekend. Had a terrible performance in the sprint as well. And had a crash during the qualifying. Team fixed that car. Started a P16 and again did not finish because he went to the pits in the middle of the race, got a new set of inters, came out and lost it in the start finish straight, hit the barriers on the right, DNF'd, absolutely destroyed and wrecked the car. The reaction on the faces of Williams mechanics was painful to see. Up next, we have Carlos Sainz, the smooth operator. He crashed into the barriers. I think he was going downhill somewhere. I forgot the turn. He was going downhill. He lost it. He went into the barriers. He was going too hard. Did not really have much performance in the car either. Was not feeling confident at all. He took a new engine and a couple of gearbox components, so which is why he was starting from the pit lane. His qualifying was abysmal. He was not feeling comfortable throughout the weekend. Couldn't really ask for more performance around him. It was just not his week. Nothing much to say here. Hope he, does something different in Las Vegas. Up next, we have Zhou Guanyu. One thing I really like about this guy is his attitude. He's consistently finishing last, and in this race also he finished last. All the 5 people ahead of him, all the positions that he made is because people DNF'd. But regardless of that, when people ask him how was your race and etc., he tries to give like a good answer, not like Lance Stroll. So if you ask anything to Zhou Guanyu about what the race is, even though he came last, he said that, we manage everything, blah, blah, blah. Car is a little bit better than the last week, but still not good enough to go and challenge for the points. The same trend continues. It's really a shame because he deserves a drive for the next season, and it is unfortunate that his season in Formula 1, he had a car which was so shit that he couldn't even demonstrate his racecraft. So this is the saddest part of Zhou Guanyu's 2024 campaign. It is what it is. That's the game. Love to see this guy go and score some points in the future. Not going to happen in this season at all. Up next, we have Fernando Alonso. And this was the race that disappointed me the most, because I know that in Brazil, the weather is going to be tricky. And everyone is starting from weird places. And if there is one person who can take advantage of this chaos, it was Fernando Alonso. But unfortunately, car was shit. He complained it on the radio at one point. He said that I'm going to bring the car home for the mechanics, but the car is shit. He was hurting his back. He said it on the radio. If Fernando is saying all of these things, it means the car is shit. So started 9th, could have really scored some points, maybe even a podium, because that's Fernando Alonso, but the car was absolutely unstable. All they had to do was just make it stable. The car should work. And in rain, the pace gets neutralized. The faster cars are not really that fast, and you can overtake anyone. And Fernando, he could have pulled out a massive, impressive performance in these type of conditions. But the Aston Martin team did an absolutely terrible job in setting up his car. It is what it is. Hopefully, in the upcoming 3 races, the last 3 races of the season, he will go ahead and score some points. I really want to see Fernando end the season on a high, because 2025 is also going to be struggling for these guys. The Adrian Newey designed car will hit the tracks in 2026. So, yeah, I hope these guys turn things around. Great performance by Fernando Alonso in the quali, but the race just fell apart. Up next, we have Valtteri Bottas. The teams have started to make sense of the upgrades that these guys have bought. I think they bought it in Austin. One set of upgrades. It was fit in Valtteri's car, and he's making some progress. A couple of tenths here and there. In rain also, these guys were shit. Maybe because Valtteri Bottas is not that good in rain, I'm just saying. But yeah, he struggled as usual. Shittiest car, the slowest car on the grid, and it reflected in rain. It doesn't really matter much whether these guys come P13 or P18 or do not finish. It is what it is. Up next, Oliver Behrman. He had a roller coaster of a weekend. Earlier, it was only speculated that he is going to take over Kevin Magnussen's Haas for just the practice sessions, but ended up doing the whole weekend, had a very unimpressive performance. I don't think he could have done anything better, considering he only had a week to get accustomed with the car. Had some good battles against Lewis Hamilton, had some wheel-to-wheel exchanges against, I think, Fernando Alonso and his teammate Nico Hülkenberg for the weekend as well. Had some decent bursts of performance here and there. At one point, he was chasing Carlos Sainz really fast, around the S's, I believe, and then he lost it, went off the track and hit the barriers, managed to keep the engine running, didn't do any damage to his car, rejoined the track, and at least brought the car home. So I guess you can say something about that. When a lot of these experienced drivers are losing it, including Carlos Sainz, and this guy is bringing it back, it's the best possible outcome that these guys can get for the weekend, considering Hülkenberg also got disqualified because of the marshal's assistant thing. Anyway, we move on. Up next, Sergio Perez. This man is an absolute disgrace. So, in the main race, he started P12, better than his teammate who started P17, gets a decent enough launch of the line in lap 2 by himself. He spins around, I think around turn 2 or turn 3. Then he is in the back of the grid, tries to make progress, tries to slice through the field, gets stuck behind Lewis Hamilton, which is like at best the fourth fastest car on the grid in these conditions. Also, Lewis Hamilton's car was also spec'd in a really terrible way. Doesn't really make any progress, spends a bunch of time battling Liam Lawson. Liam defends amazingly well against this idiot. It's interesting how he started ahead of his teammate and finished outside of the points. He didn't even make it to the points where his teammate went ahead and won the race. The only reason this guy has a seat in Red Bull because he brings in the money, and because Red Bull are absolutely retarded in, planning their driver lineups. I don't understand why this guy is still here. He got one single point in the sprint race, which is not nothing. The entire weekend, Red Bull scored 32 points, I think. Yeah, Red Bull scored 32 points. 31 points of that is scored by Max Verstappen. Only 1 point is scored by Checo, who scored the last position in the sprint race. He overtook Liam Lawson in the sprint race. Very difficult, by the way. He struggled to overtake Liam Lawson. Very interesting to see. We all knew that this guy is not going to perform. It is actually impressive that this motherfucker actually bought the car back. I was doubting for a second that he will DNF like rest of the others, considering how shit he has become over time. But yeah, fortunately, he brought the car back in P11, had some decent battles and exchanges with Lewis Hamilton. At one point, he even overtook Lewis Hamilton. Then a few corners later, he lost it. And then Lewis took the position back, and then it was kind of like stalemate-ish, because it's harder to do overtake, and it's even harder to overtake when you are Sergio Perez, even if you have the faster car. It is what it is. Up next, Lewis Hamilton. He actually had a decent race, considering he was not feeling confident in the car. Started P14, picked up the last point on the grid from Sergio Perez. In a shit car, which just bouncing around, similar to Fernando Alonso problems, just brought the car home. Slightly better than Fernando Alonso in terms of pace, I guess. That's why he was able to hold on to P10. Based on all of the things, based on how the recent performances and his recent weeks have been going, he has to be happy with that. When these type of dynamic conditions happen and you start P14 so far back, getting a point finish is the best you can hope for. The car is shit. I believe when Lewis says the car is shit, the car would be shit, because he's not Sergio Perez. So there's nothing much to say. I hope Lewis Hamilton picks up his performance when he goes back to Ferrari, because it also seems a little bit that Hamilton is getting washed out. But either way, okay performance, nothing much to see. Didn't really go off much. Lost the car a couple of times here and there. His car was shaking. Didn't really have grip throughout the weekend, as he said on the mic. It is what it is. Hopefully these guys will fix their issues, because we need some interesting battles in the midfield as well. Up next, we got Liam Lawson. He had actually a good weekend. So he started the race at P5. He was doing well. He was holding his own. At one point of time, it seemed to me that he was defending against Max Verstappen when Max Verstappen was slicing through the field. And he and Max Verstappen went like wheel to wheel, side by side for a couple of corners before he conceded the place. I think he didn't want to battle it as hard as he battled with Sergio Perez, because there is actually bad blood between Lawson and Perez. He is making it a point to consistently outperform Sergio Perez in that RB to secure that position. So throughout the race, well measured. The only reason he dropped out of position is because he got unlucky, just like George Russell and Lando Norris. Lando Norris was shit, but George Russell got unlucky with the red flag, and because they just pitted just earlier than that. And Liam Lawson actually was side by side Yuki Tsunoda in the beginning of the race, and he was able to make a move. And when he bailed out, it was a bit too late. He lost the position to Charles Leclerc at this point, and he just lost a little bit of ground. Making overtakes is difficult. He was stuck there for the whole time, and he also lost out in the pitting window because of the red flag. It is what it is, but a good performance nonetheless. He was about to score a point in the sprint race as well, but Sergio Perez in the dying moments of the race overtook him. He defended it well for as long as he could, but eventually in those conditions you're not going to hold on to that position for much longer. He defended extremely well against Perez and Hamilton throughout the race. That was some masterclass. I hope the F1 TV guys, the YouTube channel in particular, drop his amazing defensive driving. It was very good to see. Good fun. But he was disappointed because based on where he started, they probably wanted more points. Everybody does. Up next, we have Oscar Piastri. Started the race on P8, didn't really have much grip to go on, had that collision with Liam Lawson, got a 10-second penalty, then got into the pits, gets a fresh pair of rubber. Everyone around him does the same, drives well after that, but not on the level of the car's performance. I genuinely believe both Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris did not maximize the car's performance. So when Max Verstappen was slicing through the field, he overtook Oscar Piastri as if he didn't even exist. So that was kind of interesting to see. I thought that Piastri would defend that position tooth and nail, but at the same time Max Verstappen was too behind. Maybe he caught him napping a little bit. Anything goes in these type of conditions. Poor performance and just unlucky weekend for Oscar Piastri, because he conceded the win in sprint for no reason, and he conceded another position in the main race to Lando Norris for no reason. The reason why I'm saying that is because in sprint, the reason Oscar Piastri conceded the rightful first position to Lando to help Lando in the championship winning battle. Lando Norris doesn't deserve that, as we have seen in his performance in the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend. We will talk about that in a minute though. So that was pointless. You lost your maiden sprint victory and a championship point for no reason. Then in the race, you have a 10-second penalty. Lando potentially has a 5-second penalty. And I think at the point where McLaren swapped the drivers in the main race, Oscar Piastri was faster, and he should have held on to that position. It is what it is. Couldn't really capitalize much on that. And after that 10-second penalty, Yuki Tsunoda pipped him for P7. It is what it is. Up next, we have Yuki Tsunoda. Started P3, lost some positions in some battles, and especially in the line of pit stops. Got a little bit unlucky, had a lonely race, didn't really see much action against him. He was defending his position well, and that line of pit stops just ruined his chances of securing a podium position or like a top 5 finish. I think top 5 was definitely up for grabs for Yuki Tsunoda, but regardless of that, he got a P7, which is good compared to Mexico and Austin. In Austin, he started ahead of Liam Lawson and finished behind him and made some mistakes. In Mexico, he DNF'd before even making it to the first corner of the race. In Brazil, finished P7, Be happy, go home, buddy. Alright? I mean, okay, you probably wanted to stand on the podium, but considering how this triple header has ended for you, it's good. Alright? You have to be impressed with the qualifying performance. You have to be impressed with the race performance as well. Well measured from Yuki Tsunoda, by the way. Doesn't get enough credit. It's unfortunate that everybody is looking past him and always considering the other guy in RB to be the second Red Bull driver in the future. Like when Daniel Ricciardo was here, everybody was like, oh, Daniel Rick is going to replace Checo. When Lawson was here, like he's here now, everybody's again ignoring Yuki and saying that, oh, Lawson is going to replace Checo Perez. What about Yuki? Everybody's looking past this guy because probably he's shot. And his last couple of shit performances in Austin and also in Mexico comes to an end, ending the triple header on a positive note, score some points, on to the next one. We have the shittiest driver I have ever seen in Brazil, Lando Norris. So let's start from the top. Because in the post-race interview, this motherfucker said, it is luck, it has nothing to do with talent, we just got a little bit unlucky, right? So let's start from the top. Formation lap begins. Lando is going around. Lance Stroll does his thing. Aborted start. The lights have to be green before you go again. How do you mess that up? I'm not even a Formula 1 driver, and I know that when the lights are green, you're supposed to wait until the lights are green. Gets a 5-second penalty. That penalty is given on like after the end of the race. But again, rookie mistake. Verstappen says it. Verstappen is just chilling in his car and is like, you gotta wait until the lights are green. And Colapinto is also not in the right position. Everybody was fucking it up. This guy in particular. Okay, whatever, forgive him. You know, it was a confusing moment and blah, blah, blah. And then the race start happens. Loses the position to George Russell in the first corner of the race. This is the problem with Lando Norris. When in race starts, he's just horrible. So he loses the position to George Russell. He loses the position to George Russell. Is stuck behind him for like 25 laps. He's not even making a move. He's not even in a position to go ahead and make a move. If you are in the fastest car and you struggle to overtake the third fastest car in wet conditions, it means you are shit. It doesn't mean you are unlucky. It has everything to do with talent, and you are talentless. So that happens, and George Russell pits. Following him, Lando Norris pits as well, because McLaren pit crew, these motherfuckers don't have a brain. They're proactive. What other people do, they just react to that. They call Lando in. To Lando's credit, he overtakes Russell this time. All right, good job. And then the Franco Colapinto red flag happens, and he whines like a bitch on the radio. Yeah, so everybody's gonna get a cheap stop, right? Fucking shut the fuck up. So again, the red flag ends. Rolling start happens. This time, he loses another couple of positions to George Russell, who he overtook just before the red flag, and also Charles Leclerc. Or was the Charles Leclerc position happen after that? So anyway, he loses another couple of positions, and then another yellow flag happens because of Carlos Sainz, his former teammate. When that safety car ends, he loses another position to, I think, Leclerc and Oscar Piastri this time. So each of the time the race has started or restarted, he loses at least one position. In the beginning, in the first race starts, before the race even begins, he has a start infringement, potential 5-second penalty, which he was awarded after the end of the race. The race begins, loses the position to George Russell. After the red flag, rolling start, loses the position to George Russell again, then fucks it around the outside of turn 1. He loses control, I think, and after that, Leclerc goes through. After some time, in the second restart, somewhere around that time, Oscar Piastri goes through as well. He is so shit, he can't even overtake his own teammate in same machinery. That is a telltale sign that you are not championship winning material. If you are struggling behind Oscar Piastri in same machinery, you will never become world champion. So McLaren again do the dumbest thing, call up Oscar Piastri, who himself has a 10-second penalty, and tell him to stay behind Lando Norris. I think Oscar was fast at that point of time in the race. Does nothing with it, doesn't attack anybody, absolutely useless, no head down, nothing like this. Just brings the car home in P6, gets a handful of points, gives delusional interviews after the race and saying that like it has nothing to do with talent, it has everything to do with luck. We just got caught in the red flag, we just made strategy issues, and he's doubling down on his dumb decisions. He was like, I was losing so much grip, pitting was the right thing to do, you dumb motherfucker. All he had to do was to finish where he started. Phenomenal performance in qualifying, no doubt. Decent average performance in sprint. When you start on the front row in sprint and you can't even overtake your teammate in equal machinery to win the sprint, you're not that good. But either way, McLaren team orders, whatever it is, average sprint performance, and you have been gifted this Grand Prix to chew away from the lead of Max Verstappen. He could have taken huge amount of points out of Max's lead. Fucked it up. I'll make another video about this, detailing the shenanigans of this runt, but I don't think this guy will ever win a world championship. He's just not that good. When you start P1, finish P6, and then claim that it was not luck, sorry, it was not talent, it was just luck, when your championship rival starts P17 and wins the race, you're not championship winning material, buddy. Up next, we have Charles Leclerc. Started P6, finished P5. Decent enough performance. He was as uncomfortable in this car as Carlos Sainz. He just capitalized on the mistakes of others, like I mentioned, when Lando Norris went out after the second rolling start. I think after the safety car of Carlos Sainz came to an end. Safety car caused by Carlos Sainz crashing came to an end. He pipped Lando Norris, held on to that position. His car was unstable as fuck throughout the lap. In many corners, he was just losing it. Happy that he brought it back home. The entire triple header has been okay for Leclerc. Basically, he won in Austin, came P3 in Mexico, respectful P5 in chaotic Sao Paulo. He has to be happy with that. If you're Charles Leclerc and Ferrari, this was an okay weekend. They also scored a handful of points in the sprint race. You cannot be mad at this. Up next, we have George Russell. Look, with Max Verstappen's pace, I don't think George could have won the race. But he definitely could have stood on the podium. And he had the grip and he had the confidence to stay with those inters for a few extra laps just to hold on and see if they red flag the session. That could have happened. And as usual, he's panicking on the radio. I wanted to stay outside, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, very good performance by George Russell, regardless of where he finished. Got the jump on Lando Norris, led the race for I think 25 odd laps. After the pit stop, he came out behind Esteban Ocon and all those guys. Gets overtaken by Lando Norris. Waits patiently, overtakes Lando when he gets a good opportunity. And stays in that position. Goes ahead to bring the car in fourth position while his teammate was struggling to even get into the points. And finally, Lewis actually got 1 point. Great performance by George Russell. If you're George Russell, you have to be happy with this. Based on how shit your car is, you're on the third fastest car. And I know that, of course, as a driver with will to win, unlike Lando Norris, George Russell is severely disappointed because he wanted to be on the podium at least, if not a race win. And this was a great opportunity for Mercedes to get another podium. So they just absolutely fucked it up with the strategy. Blunder. And this is fun about Brazil. This is what makes Brazil a lot special. Got a little bit unlucky. This guy can say that it was luck. Unlike Lando Norris, Russell can say that, oh, it was just luck. But it is what it is. We move on. Pierre Gasly just thugged it out. Just started the race in P13, had a decent start, and made some overtakes here and there, took advantage of mistakes of other people. Didn't really panic, didn't really go ahead and pressured for a pit stop or thought about a strategy when it was pissing down. Remained calm and just picked up the positions in the red flag pit stop. Got a free set of change of tires and then continued for his race. Held on to the P3 position for the remainder of the race after the stint, and just brought the car home at a respectful and amazing P3. Great drive from him. And yeah, hope to see this guy more on the podium, and he deserves to be on the podium. Tell you what, in Austin, he had a great qualifying, couldn't convert it. In Mexico, he had a good qualifying. I think he came dead last. I think he took 1 point home. Here, he wasn't that confident. He was really sad after qualifying got finished. Stood on the podium at the end of the race. Phenomenal performance by Pierre Gasly. Up next, we have Esteban Ocon. Of all of the drivers in the grid, if someone had put in really consistent performance, it is this guy. Obviously, apart from Max Verstappen. Started P4. Great job in qualifying, by the way. Second row. Has a good start in the, like, unlike Lando Norris, it doesn't bottle the start. Held on to the position, maintained track position, was very good in keeping the car within the white lines and not losing it. Chaotic race, held on to that position. He was leading the race for, I think, like 10 odd laps or something. Not 10 odd laps, like I think a handful of laps. And the red flag of Colapinto happens, goes to the pits, gets a free pit stop basically, remains on that P1 position for a long period of time. Loses it in the safety car restart. Could he have done anything differently? Yes. I think if Esteban Ocon protected the inside line into turn 1, I think he would have deterred Max Verstappen attacking him. Just force Max to go from outside. Outside, it is not that grippy, and Max Verstappen won't try anything crazy considering he started P17 and he is now ahead of his championship rival Lando Norris. So he could have made it a little bit more difficult. Again, like, this is a trend that I'm also saying. Not a lot of these drivers are defending tooth and nail against Max Verstappen. First, that was Oscar Piastri. I mean, Oscar Piastri just left the door wide open. Max overtook Piastri like he wasn't even there, and Max overtook Esteban Ocon the same way. Esteban should have hugged the inside line because that's where Max is making all of his overtakes. He was very confident in the inside line, just sending it down the inside, braking really late, not locking up and making it stick. He should have stuck to that line. But either way, great performance by Esteban Ocon. Phenomenal points by Alpine team. I think they're now P6 in the Constructors title. Who would have guessed, right? P9 from P6 in one weekend. I think Karun Chandok was saying from the commentary box that this race is worth $50 million for these two guys. So not for these two guys, like Alpine, for instance. Amazing performance, phenomenal Grand Prix. Hope you can see these type of performances more. Esteban Ocon is actually talented, so it'll be fun to see him in the future. Up next, we have Max Verstappen. The performance that Max Verstappen put in Brazil is the same reason I was mad at him after Mexico. I mean, I'm pretty sure Max Verstappen doesn't give a shit who is mad at him. But when he was doing those interesting maneuvers in Mexico, I was screaming at the screen because he doesn't need to do that. He's Max Verstappen. He could just put in his best performance, clean performance, and he can smoke everybody in the field. And he proved it in Brazil. Got knocked out in Q1. Or Q2, sorry. Really interesting time of the red flag. He said that on the post-qualifying interview as well. A similar incident happened with him during the sprint too. The moment where the VSC was applied, like everything was against him from the weekend start. The VSC's timing was weird because he was catching up on Oscar Piastri. Then after the sprint race, he was also awarded a 5-second penalty, so that also worked against him. In the qualifying, he got knocked out on Q2 right at the nick of it. He could have made it. 5-place grid penalty for a new power unit, started from like P17 in this type of dangerous conditions where overtaking is really difficult. But all he did was not make any mistakes and just drive the car the basic fundamental Max Verstappen way, which is more than enough for him to win the race by almost 20 seconds. 19.48 seconds he won the race by. Like, he was, I think it was like 15 or 16 back-to-back like fastest laps. That's how quick he was going for the last 15 or 18 laps of the Grand Prix. That's how good he was getting. In the first lap, he made up 6 positions, and he couldn't even see Checo because Checo had that spin, and he just sliced through the field. No one really had an answer for him. Oscar Piastri didn't defend against him. Liam Lawson couldn't defend against him, and he just thugged it out. He just stuck it for the entire heavy rain period of time. He just held on to his position, remained patient. The red flag happened, got a free pit stop, bided his time, waited and waited. In the restart, got ahead of Esteban Ocon and went ahead and, pulled out a dominant gap, 19.4 seconds, 20 seconds worth of gap, and won the checkered flag. Really unmatched performance, phenomenal talent, and this is what we are here for. Like, if Max Verstappen continues to drive like this, he doesn't need to do the dirty driving things. He doesn't need to drive into Norris. He doesn't need to start the race with the objective of ruining his championship rivals' winning chances. His championship rivals' race winning chances is what I mean. He don't need to do any of that. All he had to do is just drive like Max Verstappen and he was gonna win, and he did win. What a phenomenal victory. After Mexico, I was thinking that maybe Lando has a chance at the World Driver Championship because Max was getting a little bit too desperate and he was making too many mistakes and he was being too aggressive and it was attracting the attention of FIA and he was getting penalized left, right and center. But after Brazil, I'm 100% sure that there is no way Lando Norris will pull off this type of performances. Lando Norris had bad starts in many races. I don't remember this guy, Lando, pulling performance like Max. Not from 17-1. This is even better than when Lewis won from P10 in 2021. It's even better than that. So Max Verstappen, phenomenal performance, championship leader, increases his lead to 62 points. He walked into the weekend with a 47-point lead, lost 3 points to Lando after the sprint race, so it was down to 44. Pulled out a phenomenal performance in the main race, got it up to again 62. I doubt Lando Norris is ever going to catch him. And I 100% believe that Max has given some significant psychological and emotional damage to Lando Norris. I hope he did that. And thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. And I'll see you later.